Tummy Temple community, those of you who are here and out in Facebook land, welcome to Temple Wise October 2017. Today's class is called Bon Voyage, Travel Savvy, and I'm really excited. This is a great topic. A lot of people are starting to book their trips for later in the year. People tend to stay around Seattle in the summertime. Maybe you're a year-round traveler, but I know I like to catch the weather here, but starting to think about where I want to go. And I want to look at the larger context of care here around travel and just this time of year in general. Adaptability and grounding is really, really important. So in the Chinese medicine wheel that we're kind of guiding these classes with, we are in this Sheng cycle here. The Sheng cycle is the cycle of the mother and the child. So each season and all of the organs of that season and all the different attributes of that season give rise to the next one. So they all feed into one another and nurture one another like a mother and a child. So we've just rounded the corner here from the earth element that we dished on last month, and we're into the metal element. And some people think that's a funny name for an element, but what metal is referring to is like the minerals and the veins in the earth. It really conducts a lot of the energy in the earth. And so this is a time of year when we're really tapping into that really basic source energy that courses through us, a lot of our emotional energy. And so the fall organs are the lungs and the large intestine. And what's really amazing too is that in Ayurveda, the Indian science of life, where actually Chinese medicine came from Ayurveda, we're in the Vata season. And I want to give a quick reference on what that means and what their system entails. So there's three major parts of the year in Ayurveda. And there is three different seasons that they recognize. And there's the kapha, the pitta, and the vata. So the pitta is really that kind of fire, they say it's fire and water element, and that's the summertime when it's really, really hot. The kapha season is when the earth is thawing out. That's the springtime zone, where the earth is thawing out and everything is kind of flowing and muddy and watery. And then the Vata season here where we're at is a little bit drier. We see the leaves falling off the trees. We see things kind of drying up. The winds are picking up. And so the Vata season is that air and space element. And in the Vata season, we need to balance that by actually, there's that dry, windy, cold. We have on our handout here, dry, cold, brittle, gaseous, kind of that air element. And the mental and the intellect is more kind of, flies up into our mind. We need to balance that with things that are grounding and moistening and warming. So in Ayurveda, they name the season what could be out of balance. And so if it's the Vata season, they're actually inviting us to cultivate some of the kapha, that earth and that water element, so that we can ground and balance the Vata. And so air and space, things are dry. As I mentioned, the leaves are falling off the trees. This is a time when you can hear your joints popping a lot. The joints are a little bit drier. That synovial fluid that lubricates our joints is a little bit shortcoming. We have to work a little harder to keep that moistness there. It's cold. It's getting cold naturally outside, and the body tends to get a little bit colder. And then brittle. Things are not as strong and stable. Things are just a little bit more ungrounded, so we have to cultivate that stability. And gaseous really means that's another kind of an offshoot of the cold, is that in our bodies, we tend to get a lot of gas this time of year. They say that the colon is actually the seat of Vata. And so the colon it's a one-trick pony. As Nedra says, its only job is to be a big poop dehydrator. So its in nature is dry anyway. And so keeping that moist and flowing and clear of gas is really important. And then again, the mental and the intellectual, this is a time where stress starts to pick up. The winds outside pick up, the winds inside pick up, right? So travel, as wonderful it is, all the adventure and the new foods and all of the wonderful things about travel can aggravate all of these things. And it shows up in some pretty recognizable ways, and I'm pretty sure that you have experienced some of these if you are a traveler. Okay, so we're going to go over some of these things and how we can remedy them, how we can start to bring those things into balance. Just some simple tricks and tips and hacks, okay? So number one, the number one thing people complain about, constipation what's up with that? What's up with the constipation? Even if you're regular most of the time, constipation can be an issue when you travel. So one of the reasons this happens is there's a few different theories. One of them, from a Chinese medicine perspective, is that we have a very specific electromagnetic connection to the earth in the space that we're at, in kind of in our regular routine. And when we are picked up 35,000 feet in the air and dropped somewhere else, our bodies are not really oriented to that electromagnetic profile. And another thing is that when you do go up that high, think about the atmosphere in an airplane is pressurized. Everything's going up. In your body, energetically, everything's going up. So it's all flying up here. And what we need for digestion or in elimination is really energy to flow down and out. And so how do we get that energy flowing down and out? So Daiju, a few days beforehand and during travel, and this is our Daiju. I wanted to start with this because for travel, this is really kind of the number one travel buddy. This is our number one selling product here at Tummy Temple. And Daiju really helps to regulate, and that's what we're looking for, is regulation and rhythm, to regulate the digestive juices in your tract. And then it has an herb in it. This is a Chinese medicine formula that has an herb in it that helps to draw water to the colon. So now we're moistening and getting that regulated, right? And so this can help you to stay on that rhythm. So if you take it a few days beforehand, like you're kind of loading it in, and then you take it throughout your travel. So I usually have 1 or 2 packets of Daiju stashed in my carry-on just so that I have it. I know that it's there and I'm not going to forget it, because I wouldn't want to travel without Daiju. It's a wonderful product. Just these little, it's called tea pills, these little tiny black balls, and you swallow them. And there's recommendations you can take anywhere from 10 to 30 or even some more per dose. And it's a really, really handy thing to have with you. I wanted to tell you about my favorite pre-flight breakfast that I will have the morning that I travel. And I'll throw about maybe 10 prunes into my little slow cooker, or you can do it on the stove, and I just cook them for a while until they get really soft and fall apart. And I've cooked them with a cinnamon stick in there as well. And then I take it out and I add a couple of tablespoons of ground flax seeds. Okay, and so prunes are famous for, you know what, they help you poo. And then all the water that these prunes are cooked in, usually these dry fruit, we want to avoid dry, right? But now they're all soft and gooey and mushy. And then the flax is really wonderful to create a little bit of bulk in the colon, and it has that mucilage kind of a slip that allows things to kind of move out well. Flax is also famous for helping to move the bowels. So now we have this watery, moistening stimulator for the bowels, and it's a great thing to have before you fly, as your body is just really primed. It's really important to stay hydrated. I used to do the silly thing where I hated getting up to go to the bathroom on a flight, so I would actually purposely stop drinking water before I got on the airplane. It really aggravated that dryness in the colon, that dryness and stress and all of those things that come with it. So stay hydrated. If you have to get up to go to the bathroom, the person next to you understands. They've had to do it before, and then you get to maybe have a little stretch on the way. Another great trick is to use some essential oil from a big tree. So I have on our handout here vetiver, cedar, cypress, and any kind of other grounding oil that you know of, or maybe an oil blend. And I like to put it on my feet just so that I have that kind of that energy drawing downward. And I think it's going to ground me when I'm 35,000 feet in the air. Is going to be helpful. There's a grounding practice that I suggest, and we'll practice that at the end, and I'll show you what that is. And doing a little self-abdominal massage after the flight. And I made a little video about self-abdominal massage a while back, and that's on our Tummy Temple YouTube channel, or you can link to it through our Facebook page. And it just takes a few minutes, and if you do that a few times a day, it can really help kind of reorient your electromagnetic energy and get that things moving around and out. So that can be really helpful as well. And then the next one is jet lag and sleep issues. Well, it's already hard to sleep on a flight, so let's add on either losing time or gaining time if you're moving through time zones, and that can be really difficult. You arrive and you're just really thrown off. And so I just want to keep coming back to this idea of how do we establish grounding and rhythm. And those are the things that really remedy this Vata imbalance that's probably being generated on our flight. So one of the things that I really like to use is 5-HTP, which is a neurotransmitter that really helps your body to kind of regulate to the circadian rhythms, no matter where you're at. I like 5-HTP. It also helps if you tend to wake up really easily in the middle of the night. It helps you to go back to sleep. It's really good. And GABA Ease, many of you already take GABA or have heard of GABA, G-A-B-A. We just call it GABA. And GABA Ease is not only some GABA, but it has some other herbs in it that are very relaxing. And I like to take this right before I get on the plane so that I know I'll have the chance of maybe getting some sleep and also just, helping my body to get oriented to the new place that I'm going and to be calm. It's really important. I don't have it on the handout, but kava is another herb that's really, really great. This is the one where for me, it may not be for you but if you've tried it, but for me, this is like do not operate heavy machinery after you take kava. So for me, I really like to take it. I know I'm going to be sitting on an airplane, somebody else is driving the plane, so I'm good with taking a nice big dose of kava, and I'll probably get a good nap, or at least be really chilled out on the plane. This is a good one. I forgot to say something about GABA. I talk about this a lot in the restorative yoga classes that I teach, because this is the neurotransmitter that actually helps you to tune out noise, and it kind of helps you draw in a little bit, and so you're not really caring about all the fluster around you. You're not as drawn into the fray as you normally would be. So this is a good one. I just wanted to make that note. If you're leaving your time zone, here's a trick. If you're leaving your time zone 3 to 5 days before departure, now this is a little ambitious, but it really pays off, especially if you're, I travel to Australia almost every year, and so that's a really huge, that's like almost a whole day time change. So I'll do this one. You either just decide if you're going forward or back in time. I set on my phone, I have a world clock, most of you do too, or you can just get a separate clock and set it for the time of the place that you're going, so that you just, first of all, in your mind are already readying yourself mentally for that time change. But then I'll start to either go to bed a few hours earlier and then maybe get up a few hours earlier, or vice versa, later, and just start to get myself sliding into that space so it's not a big shock when I get off the plane. So that's a one that's worked for me that you might like. And you can also tell your flight attendant not to wake you up for meals. That always drives me nuts. I finally got to sleep, and the flight attendant wakes me up for meals. So I've learned to let them know beforehand, state your needs. What do you need? I need you to let me sleep. And then, there are some reasons why they would need to wake you up, though, because maybe there's fasten seatbelt or, all that stuff going on. So I always make sure my seatbelt is fastened over my blanket or on my lap in a visible way, so that they know that I'm just buckled in. They don't have to bug me. And, it's great to be a hero, but you may want to get a little bit more rest. Instead, emergency exit seats oftentimes do not recline. So that's something to think about. You can check, but often they don't recline. So nice to avoid those if you can. And bulkhead seats, sometimes the armrests don't go down. So imagine just like the Twilight Zone nightmare of like being on a 12-hour flight and having that seat and just nobody sitting next to you, and there's all this space, and yet those armrests will not go up. So now you don't really even have a surface to sleep with. So I would say if you could, try to avoid those. And I did give a little tip. There's a website called seatguru.com. That's seatguru.com. And it has most of the major airlines on there, and it'll help you to actually kind of get your way into a seat that's favorable for you. Another place to avoid on a plane, if you can, is the back, because usually it's near the bathrooms. There's a lot of traffic and maybe some not great smells. And there's a lot of engine noise back there as well. The galley is usually back there. There's just a lot of flurry and noise and movement. So that could be something to think about when you're choosing a seat. So another problem we usually have when we're traveling, not only on the plane, but also just throughout the trip, is indigestion and gas, or just digestive issues in general. New foods, oftentimes eating out a lot if you don't have like a kitchen or something, you're just kind of on your own to adapt to that new environment. And there's also, depending on where you're traveling, a risk of parasites or foodborne illnesses. You know, we're in the middle of a lot of germs and a lot of microbes that our bodies are not used to. Maybe we can get away with that around here where our bodies are oriented, but it can be helpful to have a few things in mind when you're traveling that way. So number one, we'll start with like the gas and the indigestion, because gas is a real problem on the flight. Again, everything is kind of pulling up. It's being in the air, just kind of, you know, elements tend to attract one another, so that air will kind of develop in your body as well. One of those things is to eat light beforehand. You can either do the breakfast that I suggested, or maybe just some fresh fruit. Another great thing is maybe a scoop of the Mediclear, which has protein, and it's like a multivitamin, and it's really cleansing. This would be a great start for a day of flying. There's also the Ultra Inflammix that we featured last month. It's anti-inflammatory, and it has some protein in it. So, you know, I mean, you could also, and I have this on here, you could consider fasting for the flight. You know, you are just going to be sitting there for a while. You can always eat when you get off the plane, and I think most of us can go a lot longer than we think without food. If you have adrenal fatigue issues and, you know, other things, of course you want to consider that, but it might be a nice time to just kind of just drink water and stay hydrated instead. And of course, you don't want to get the extra value meal on the way to the airport. So you want to avoid processed and oily, heavy foods. And then there's some usual suspects like onions and broccoli and cauliflower, you know, healthy foods that tend to create some gas. Those have fermentable fibers that, you know, you're sitting in a plane seat. This is all compressed, you know, you're prone to gas in the situation anyway. Might be nice to avoid those things. So that fresh fruit or just a scoop of either of these can be really lovely, or fasting. Let's see, where are we at? And then of course they're going to come by and they're going to offer you dry, salty snacks like peanuts and pretzels, and the key words here are dry and salty. Salt dehydrates. So I used to travel frequently with somebody who would get a can of the Bloody Mary mix without any alcohol in it, so they thought they were like totally good, but then I was like, just peek at the sodium. That's like quadruple digits of sodium on there. So I'll just always be kind of looking around, even if you pack your own snacks. Is it dry? Is it salty? You know, is it going to cause some gas? You just want to try to keep things like that out of your diet on the plane for sure. And again, you want to keep hydrated. That's going to really, really help, because that dryness and that coldness is what can lead to gas. And so let's see if I have it with me. I have a little electrolyte. I always carry one of these with me, a little electrolyte fizz powder pack. They're not going to take that away from you at the security line. And then you can get a bottle of water from your attendant and mix that in, and that's going to be really helpful. And just sip on that. So you don't want to just down it all at once. Maybe you just kind of sip that throughout your flights. You always have a little water coming in. And if you sip it, you're less likely to have just a bladder bomb and have to just run to the bathroom every, hour or so. This is really good. Our E-Light that we have here is great too, but it's a little bit too big to carry on, and it is a liquid. So that's why I wanted to show you these things are great. I always pack almost an entire box of these, at least 10 or 20 with me. They slip into pockets of your flight gear. It's really easy to carry with you for that hydration. And also no fizzy water or sparkling water, because what is that filled with? Gas, right? So I have a lot of clients that come in and they have really clean diets, but that's the one thing that they drink that as a regular beverage, and they can't understand why they have gas. And we're like, that's the thing. In Spanish, it's agua con gas. So it's like it has gas in it. That's what it's all about. So I would say avoid that as well. Just get that plain water, that clean water from the bottle. And I know everybody likes to, maybe not everybody, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, have a little glass of wine on the plane, or have a little shot of something, a little cocktail, because again, somebody else is driving, you're sitting there. but it's really worth it if you can avoid that. Alcohol is very, very drying, not great for digestion, and it also can kind of mess up your internal clock. So something that you may opt to avoid on your flight. Some things that can really help, some supplements that I love for, now you're kind of out on your new adventure and it's time to eat. I really like the Zymax because it has a full spectrum of enzymes that digest fats and carbohydrates and sugar and dairy, but it also has hydrochloric acid support, and it has some bile in it, some ox bile, so it's going to be really strong for fats. And this is a really great all-purpose digestive enzyme. I love this one. If you're allergic to shellfish, you might want to avoid it. It does have a little bit of an extract from shrimp shells, but otherwise good to go with the Zymax. That's a really good one. Anytime you can get some extra HCl support when you're traveling is awesome because, you know how dogs can just eat anything and they never get sick? Well, their stomachs are like wildly full of hydrochloric acid, and so that actually can help you to avoid microbes and other things that might otherwise have caused you illness if you have some digestive enzyme support with HCl in it. Okay, another one that has some HCl support and a lot of good bile in it to help your gallbladder digest fats, especially if you're sensitive to that and you're out and about eating. Who knows what they're cooking things in, what kind of oils they're using, right? Is the Biogest, and this is one of my favorites. This is a really good one I oftentimes take for myself and suggest to clients who have issues with gas when they eat. This is a really good one. And then we have the good old Gaia gas and bloating. It has some herbs like, there's fennel and charcoal and some other herbs that help with clearing gas. And in Ayurveda, they often use fennel to clear gas. And then the charcoal will absorb some of that as well. This is a great one. It's not one of those ones you want to just take like every single day, but if you feel like you have an acute, like really gassy belly from something, the gas and bloating can be awesome, an awesome remedy. Let's see, what else we got here? Oh, and I also, whenever I travel somewhere where there's that potential for, Mexico, India, I haven't been to India, but like places like that, you can pack just a plain charcoal tablets, and those might just save your skin. If you had some street food and you ate something that you suspect might be off, or you had some water that you're like, I don't know, maybe there's an ice cube in that we've got some exposure to some bad water. I just take like 3 or 4 charcoal tablets, and what that does is it binds everything up so that it just doesn't absorb into your system. So you have to keep in mind that will also bind up your supplements that you took and other things. So you have to kind of say goodbye to those if you have those in your system too. But at least the charcoal tablets can really, really help to get things moving through if you feel like you've gotten some buggers inside. Raw apple cider vinegar is awesome, but carrying it onto a plane or on your trip can be a little bit cumbersome or not, and maybe illegal if you won't make it through security. So you can find raw apple cider vinegar capsules, and that's also really great HCl support. Since you can take those on an empty stomach, and oftentimes digestive enzymes that have that hydrochloric acid, you actually have to wait till you have food in your stomach. The apple cider vinegar capsules, I'll usually just take those a little bit before I have a meal, and then I know that I've got a little bit of extra protection and digestive support. And as far as like creating an inhospitable environment for anything that might come in, any parasites or foodborne illness, another tip is to have in your water bottle, whatever you're drinking throughout the day as you're traveling out and about, I put in a few drops of thieves oil and a few drops of the grapefruit seed extract. Oftentimes you'll see the grapefruit seed extract is in a squeeze bottle and it says GSE. That's kind of one of the major brands. And I just shake that up and I'll drink that. And thieves oil is Young Living brand. doTERRA has one called On Guard. Or Acacia, which you can find at PCC, has one called Medieval Mix. And Thieves is this oil blend that, rumor has it that it was during the plague, that thieves would actually put this oil on and then go and loot all the bodies, knowing that that was such a protective oil blend that they wouldn't actually get contaminated by the plague. And so it was tested by thieves in medieval times just for you. And it's a really great thing if you have that in your system. Oftentimes that'll give you an extra layer of protection. So that's a really good one. Let's see. All right, a weakened immune system. So this month in October, we're talking a lot about immune system. Along with the colon in Chinese medicine, the lungs are also connected to that whole system, and our lungs have been pretty vulnerable because of these wildfires and all the smoke that we've been inhaling. And this time of year anyway, focusing on immune support is really helpful. And then let's go ahead and put ourselves in our mind's eye on the plane where the air is being recycled and people are coughing and you're thrown off of your rhythm and the immune system is just vulnerable. So what can we do to strengthen that before we get on the flight, during the flight, and then throughout our trip? I really like one of our featured products is called Host Defense. It's the My Community. It's a comprehensive immune support, and it uses a lot of mushrooms, mycelium, and this can be really helpful for adapting your immune system to different environments. It helps to sometimes reduce histamine responses to things, but this is a really great way to just strengthen your system, and I would take this probably maybe a week or two before I go, and then throughout the journey. It's a really awesome way to just get yourself strengthened up. This is 20% off this month. It's on special, so that's something to check out if you haven't already. Another thing I kind of like to load, so to speak, in is zinc. Zinc is one of those supplements too. You don't want to just take it nonstop all the time, but a lot of times people will take it when they feel like they've been exposed to some kind of virus or illness, and you can kind of build your immune system that way. But I take it just a week before I get on the flight, a week or 2 weeks before, during the flight, and then during my trip, I'll just take zinc, and that's another great way to help to the immune system. I forgot to grab it, but the vitamin D Molgen Forte by Biotics Research is also on special this month, and that's really just little drops that you put underneath your tongue, and it's in a base of some sesame oil. It is an oil-soluble vitamin, so it's good to have a presence of some oil, and you put it under your tongue, and it kind of absorbs into all that the bed of blood vessels there. And vitamin D is really helpful for your thymus gland. It helps to kind of train those white blood cells to be super killers. And so it's really important, especially those of us who live in the Northwest. We're a little short on the vitamin D, especially as we get into the darker months, because the sun is what really helps us to synthesize that. That's a good one. And let's see. Oh, yes. Let's see, where's one of our other products for that? Oh, Traveler's Tonic. Traveler's Tonic is awesome. This is some Central American herbs that, it doesn't have the ingredients on here, but they're really interesting sounding. It's not like the normal profile of like Western herbs that we're used to, but Traveler's Tonic is designed to kind of create, again, almost like that inhospitable environment. You might add that to your growing cocktail here of your thieves oil and your grapefruit seed extract, put it in the water. This is one people have reported they really like. I've used it before as well when I've traveled, and I like this one. And just while I'm at it, at the tinctures, about digestion, our tummy tonic, now called Temple Bitters, in a kind of a larger bottle, is great for digestion. It just helps to stimulate your digestive juices. So you can see how the things that stimulate digestive juices also create that kind of support and that barrier, that adaptability when we're in a new environment. And let's see. Probiotics. A good one I like is Temple Biotics, because if you look on the back of a Temple Biotics bottle, it's got like 16 different strains, and so you're just kind of creating this really diverse population of good bacteria. And probiotics and having that good bacteria can really go a long way with helping your immune system to adapt to things. Those little guys create peroxides and other things that just really help to clear your system of bad guys, and also your immune system will have a lot more information if the gut lining has integrity, and so it's always great to use these. If you're drinking your thieves oil and your grapefruit seed, obviously that's killing everything off, so you might take these with your breakfast in the morning, wait a few hours, and then you can presume your you're drinking. Proceed with that. Okay. And am I forgetting anything? Yes. Hand sanitizer. Even if you don't, I don't use hand sanitizer necessarily when I'm around here. I figure I'm just, I'm adapting to my environment, my natural environment. But when you're thrust into an environment where you have a bunch of different profiles of germs and new bacteria, it's really helpful to have that hand sanitizer just in your purse or your pocket, and just like throughout the day, just clear your hands. That might really save you from some grief. On the plane, you may have noticed with this dry environment, so high in the air, that sometimes your nasal passages get really dry and sometimes they crack, and that's really, there's a lot of susceptibility to bacteria and infection that way. So I like to just get a little bit of coconut oil and I just moisten the inside of my nasal passages, and I might even get a little tea tree oil, and I'll mix it with the coconut oil and I'll just put it around the outside. So that's just, your nostrils go directly down into your lungs, right? So this is a really nice way to put a little guardian at the doorway, so to speak. A little tea tree oil, and not too much because it can burn a little, so you want to mix it with that oil, but moistening your nasal passages is pretty important. And then temperature-wise, on the plane, it's really good to dress in layers, things that you can easily take on or off, because you want to keep your body temperature pretty normal. If you get really too hot or too cold, then that can be an issue for your immune system. And oftentimes on an airplane, I've noticed the temperature can change really quickly. And I also will I'll turn on my air just a little bit, not enough to blast myself and the person next to me with cold air, but it just creates that circulation. Because remember, this is recycled air we're breathing, so we might as well have a little bit of freshness going. So that's one of my first orders of business when I sit down and kind of get my station organized, is I turn on the air a little bit. All right, well, stress and anxiety, even if you're really excited about going where you're going to go, there's a lot of planning involved. There's a lot of, having to cross your T's and dot your I's, and there's maybe it's a whole other class, another place about things to do to make sure you're on time and everything is prepared that way. But as far as just being on the flight, again, there's something about being high in the air in this dry environment where everything it creates this Vata imbalance where we have a little bit more mental activity. It's one of the things that makes it hard to sleep on a flight. So having some adaptogenic supplements can really, really help. One of the things that I really like is the ashwagandha, and Arya is that first part of Ayurveda. Ashwagandha is used a lot in Ayurveda to treat Vata imbalance. This is an adaptogenic herb, so if you're really wound up, it'll help to take you down a little bit. If you're really fatigued, it'll kind of help to pick up your energy. It'll work with your body to bring you to that stasis, that rhythm of balance. It's really, really a sweet herb. It's also a little bit anti-inflammatory, which is great. ADHS, I forgot to grab it, but ADHS is by Biotics Research, and that is my favorite adaptogenic blend of herbs that just really help to kind of calm that flurry inside. Sometimes all of us do this where we seem calm on the outside, and you could just be sitting in your airplane seat, let's say, but inside everything is just kind of jumbled and moving, your mind is just flying around. And so I find that it just really helps me draw in and settle down. ADHS by Biotics Research, a wonderful herb, and you can take it with or without food. It's really easy to take. And then of course we have our Tummy Temple Nerve Tonic, which is just some really calming herbs, again, some stuff from Central America that you may not recognize, but they work like a charm. I find that a couple of dropperfuls of the Nerve Tonic feels like a really strong cup of chamomile tea. It's not going to knock you out. You're not going to ride the snake. It's just really sweet. It has a sweetness to it. Easy to put in a purse or what you're traveling with, whatever you're traveling with, your carry-on. And it's, let's see, this is 2 ounces? It looks like 2 ounces. So I think you can carry this on. You can carry this on. Yeah. So that would probably make it through security. And then, all right, you made it onto the flight, Nothing else you can do, nothing else you can pack. Somebody else is at the helm. So you could turn this into like a little personal retreat. You've got some time without really any responsibility. Yeah, you might need to prepare some stuff if you're going to a meeting or doing some work wherever you're going. But if you take some time to maybe download some guided meditations and listen to those on the flight, you could turn your whole flight into like a little meditation retreat. You could just take that time to draw in and you just focus on yourself. And I love when I fly, I think of the whole thing as a symbol of that transitional time between periods in our life. So it could be this whole metaphorical ritual of getting on an airplane and having this transitional time, and how would I nurture myself and my mind and my body and my spirit during this time of transition. So that can be really sweet. So if you have just a few hours on your flight, maybe you spend some time working, but then have some time for yourself to meditate. All right, body aches and swelling. These are big deals. There's this thing that happens that's been documented. It may have happened to you at some point, a deep vein thrombosis, which is when the circulation in the body gets so backed up from sitting still for so long that when you get up and move, that backup kind of releases, and that can get lodged in your brain and other parts of your body and cause illness. For some people, it can cause death. Not to scare you or anything, that's an extreme example, but what do we do about that circulation in the body? Not only our blood, but also lymphatic circulation. That can cause a lot of inflammation as well. I want to make sure that I brought this too. Okay, good. So one of the things that I like to do in the lymphatic realm is to make sure that I dry brush before my flight. That morning I get up and I give myself a really good dry brushing. And then I'll do something in Ayurveda called abhyanga, which is a full body oil massage. And I'll massage from my joints through my long bones, and I'll just massage towards my heart. And I just get some kind of nice oil. I like to use sesame, you can use coconut, something that you like, and just cover your body in oil. Because that oil, again, there's that moistening aspect, and your skin is such a huge part of your lymphatic system, and just in general, if your body can be moist from the outside, then the inside I feel like there's almost like a seal of moisture on the inside as well. So just the outer body is nice and moist. It gives you a really good head start. Everything gets dry for me in my skin on a flight anyway, so it can be a really nice thing to do for your lymphatic system. Grapefruit or cypress oil all over my feet and ankles is another trick that I do to keep from swelling. So cypress and grapefruit are great for helping lymphatic flow. And so if you rub those all over your feet and ankles, I found that I just get much less swelling in the feet. That's usually where a lot of the stuff pools. And so, just on that note, wearing really tight shoes and really uncomfortable shoes can be really painful because of that swelling. It's nice to wear something a little bit loose that you can slip on and off. And also, having your feet out of your shoes the entire time on the flight is also not great. Even though it seems like it would be, that actually allows your feet to swell quite a bit. So you want to have a little containment, but you don't want it to be extreme. So wearing those comfortable shoes is really important. It'll be nice in the airport too, especially something you can slip on and off at security, right? That streamlines that process. The lymphatone tincture that we have also on special for 20% off this month. This helps to circulate the lymph, and it really helps to help your body to make that strong and to really have it be very cleansing. The lymphatome is something that I will also do kind of the loading trick, where I'll take that at least a week before I go, and then throughout my journey. The lymphatome, you just take a dropper full 3 times a day in between meals. And I love it. I usually just put it right under my tongue. You can make it with some water, but it starts to tingle, and it feels already like even under my tongue, it's starting to move things. So this is a really, really great one to keep things circulating. Let's see, what else we got? Tight-fitting clothing is another one that can be not great for circulation. I usually opt for like yoga clothes and like a sports bra that's not as super squeezy, just something that lets my body have some room. It's easier to sleep on the flight too if you have that. Okay, so here's another one. You know those little airplane pillows? You can ask your flight attendant when you're asking her not to wake you up for meals. You can ask her for a pillow. So this is the closest I have to a airplane pillow. I was trying to score one before the class, but I wasn't able to. So one of the reasons we get this kind of achiness in our body is that we're sitting on the plane and our tailbones are really tucked under, and sometimes we just, over time as we settle in hour after hour, we just kind of slump. And so a happy place for sitting is to have a little bit of a lumbar curve in your spine. And so you can take your airplane pillow and you can put it behind you and kind of put it in your low back to encourage it to curve in a little bit. And you can roll your shoulders back and you just have this really nice curve. Your shoulder blades might rest a little bit on the edge of that pillow. As small as it is, it just gives a little bit of a lift. And I find that this makes a big difference. Not only is my spine happy, but then I'm not as crunched forward into my digestive system and my abdomen either. So that can be really a great trick there. And those little neck pillows, I was tempted to just wear one the whole time. I was talking to you guys today, but something funny about that. Usually people wear them around this way, but then it kind of pitches your head forward and there's no support for your chin. So what I do is I actually dial that thing around front. So I have something to set my chin and my cheek on, and then I don't really worry about this if I'm leaning on something, right? So, and speaking of leaning on something, it's not on here, but I just remembered that one of my carry-ons usually, wherever I go, is a yoga mat. And I love to take my yoga mat with me. It's easy to stow it above or below, but then you can actually put it next to you like a pillar and lean against it, especially if you didn't get on Seat Guru and score yourself a window seat that you can lean on and your neighbor doesn't want you to put your head on their shoulder for some reason. So you can kind of stick your yoga mat, your hip, kind of between your hip and the seat, and you can use it as a pillar to lean on. Slide your neck pillow around front, and there you go. Your head is supported. That can be really nice. Let's see, what else we got? All right, and this kind of falls into the category of an airport health hack. If you have a layover somewhere, you can, when you get to the place where there's like the seating area, you're waiting for your next flight, if you lay down on your back and put your feet up on the seat, I'm going to show you really quick what I mean. You can, if you have your carry-on, that can be your pillow, right? I'll try to do this without knocking over my mic. I'll just get down and I'll just do this. Now my legs are up and the fluid is kind of draining out of my feet, and my feet feel so much better after this. And I'll just spend 10 or 15 minutes here. And the only thing that's required is that kind of that element in your personality where you really don't care if people looking at you. They might actually just be jealous. That's what I tell myself. I just wish they were doing that. So if your head is underneath or if your head is on top of your carry-on, you don't have to worry about people swiping it. So if there's a strap on it, maybe I'll loop it around my arm or something. But every single time I travel, I always do that one because it just helps some of that fluid to drain out of the legs. And also, prana, our body's energy, has a tendency to rise up. And so if you can get the prana to rise towards your feet and out of your head, then you're going to also calm down some of that stress and anxiety. It's a really, really sweet way to treat yourself. Oh yeah, and I never travel without a tennis ball, because when you're in your airplane seat, you can actually put this tennis ball behind your shoulders and you can kind of roll into your shoulder blades a little bit. Sometimes I'll put it underneath the edge of my hip on my glute muscle. It's kind of tight when you're sitting, and I'll just let the pressure kind of push in there and lengthen out the muscle a little bit on the side or even on the inside. So you can use your tennis ball to roll around in flight, or even when you get off the plane, if you go up against a wall and you can roll yourself out against a wall, whatever, you can use it to squeeze in your hands. You can put it underneath your feet and roll your feet mid-flight or wherever you're at. And then when you get where you're going, if you've been walking around all day, on your vacation, you can also roll out your feet, roll out your body. It's really nice. All right, well, I wanted to show you, my favorite part is a little bit of yoga you can do in your airplane seat. And this is fun because it doesn't have to disturb the people next to you. It can be very subtle, and it's kind of designed so that you're not like moving your arms around so much. But what we want to do is get into the 6 directions of the spine. So the 6 directions of the spine: front and back, the forward bend, back bend, 1 and 2, side bends, 3 and 4, and then twisting to the right, twisting to the left, 5 and 6. Okay, so if you can do that, then your spine will just get some nice circulation. Your body will probably release a little bit, and you'll feel pretty good on the other side. So should we practice this together? Okay, so let's come to the edge of our seat. So it's always important to slide forward to the front of your plane seat, if only they were this comfortable. And so we have a little bit more room to move. So you just put your feet about hip distance apart, knees in line with your hips. You can press your hands onto your knees, and we'll just do a little cat-cow, which means we'll arch the spine and kind of lift up through the heart and give the spine a little arch. You might even look up a little bit and use your exhale to press into the tops of your knees and curl. All the breath leaves. We'll do that a few times. I like to do this maybe about 15 times, back and forth. We'll do it about 4 times here. Nice and slow. And again. We'll come back through center. And when you're doing yoga in an airplane seat, trying to be inconspicuous, so instead of moving the outer body a whole lot, you can use your breath and really move your inner body, and that massage that your lungs are doing as you're breathing in completely and out completely is kind of going to help to really take that where you need it to go inside. So the next one is a little bit of a twist. So all you have to do is just pick a side to turn to, and you can hold on to the edge of your plane seat and maybe slide your other hand behind the opposite hip and just sit up really straight, pressing your sit bones down, the crown of your head high, and then take those really nice deep inhales and exhales. Remember, it's our inner body, the lungs that are kind of massaging and doing most of the movement here. And I always like to imagine the energy of the breath running up through the spine and blossoming out through the nerves, moving into the muscles and the organs. I'm watching and feeling my blood kind of circulating here. I'll take a couple more breaths. You want to do 10 to 15 breaths if you're on the flight. And we'll slowly rotate over to the other side. We'll do about 5 breaths on this side, just wrapping the other arm around, maybe holding onto your hip. Or just if you're on your seat, you can kind of wedge your hand into the seat. Nice long spine. And come around front. Okay, we got 4 of the 6. So now we'll do a little side bend, and there's a couple of different ways you can do this. If you have the range of motion to bring your arm up and back, you can hold onto your elbow and maybe hold your hand onto the other side of your head, and then just push your hand into your elbow into your hand to flare open that side of your rib cage and lean over a little bit, and think about lifting up and over. So I'm not leaning over to my neighbor over here sitting next to me, but I'm a little bit more vertical, but then I'm using the push of the hand against the elbow to kind of flare the rib cage out a little bit and get that space. Another way to do this is to sit slightly diagonal, and then you may have room to lean back towards your seat instead of over towards your neighbor. I'll take one more breath here. Back through center. We'll do the other side. How happy that side of your rib cage is, just to get opened up and really let the lung reclaim that space. Sitting tall. Remember, it's those deep, long exhales that help the nervous system to calm down. So it's a really wonderful way to reduce that anxiety and stress. I could do that one all day. We'll come back. And then to show you too, and where my tennis ball go, really great thing to do with tennis ball. I'm going to bun it up here because if you have long hair, it'll catch. But some of my favorite things to do with the tennis ball is I'll take this and I'll actually put it into my fingertips because I'm going to roll it towards my palm, and that way it'll have plenty of room. And I'll start at the front of my neck, and then I'll just take this big earring out first. And I'll just roll over these big cords in the neck, and I'll push the whole time, pushing and just rolling, and just kind of like switch back all the way down. So you can see if I start at my fingertips, then it rolls to my palm, and then I can easily roll it back. I don't have to keep repositioning my ball. And I go all the way down to the edge of my trapezius muscle here where the scalenes plug in there. And just push, 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 and then I'll go back. And if I find a spot that's like, whoa, that really needs some love, I'll just stop and I'll pump it a little bit. And I'll go all the way back maybe to these big cords that plug into the skull, and I'll just go over that a few times and just push and pump and roll. But that can be just, heavenly. Does anybody want to try that? Want to give that a try? Yeah, it's really sweet. And then, so you've done your airplane seat yoga, you've got your then your tennis ball, and then back to the issue of the feet getting swollen. If you sit back and you roll your ankles, you just roll your ankles out, that's just going to put some circulation. So literally every half an hour or so, if I'm awake, I'll do some ankle rolls, just rolling them out. And then if you have room too, you can cross your ankle over the opposite knee and just lean forward and breathe into your hip and stretch out your little piriformis, the edge of your glute there. So this is another one you can do. All right, so made it to the airport. One of my favorite things to do at the airport is to, first of all, I'll try to see if there's lockers in my connecting flight airport. And I'll stow my carry-ons, and then I will just walk all over the airport. I might walk for an hour. You know, you can walk for miles in an airport, take the tour. And another reason to have those comfortable shoes and the yoga clothes on if you can. But boy, the walking will draw a lot of energy down into the legs and help that circulation, and it just makes such a big difference once you get to the other side. And then I wanted to show you a little Qigong practice that I really enjoy for reestablishing my connection wherever I have landed with that electromagnetic field of the earth, and to just kind of bring myself from 35,000 feet back down onto Mother Earth. And let's just stand up and we'll do this together. Tim, you want to make sure that yeah, that's for registering. Cool. So it's pretty simple. You want to get yourself into a wide stance with your toes kind of slightly turned out, and just bend your knees a little bit and just feel your tailbone kind of dropping down towards the earth. It's not really tucking it under, it's just kind of dropping the tailbone down, feeling the root of your body just plugging in. You can plug your feet in. You can let your arms just get really heavy and spacious here. And then I'm going to turn my palms to face towards the earth and really open up that energy there as well. And I'm sending some roots down. And I'm going to bend my knees and sink everything down and really open my palms into the earth. As I inhale, I'm drawing energy up from the earth. And then on my exhale, I'm going to push out through my feet and my hands and lengthen everything out again. So all that flurried energy is moving back into the earth, old chi leaving. Inhale, pulling in, almost like a syringe, drawing in. And exhale, pressing through the feet, the hands, and also feel energy through the root of your body, through your tailbone, moving down. Good. Inhale, drawing in. And exhale, pressing out. Let's do that a couple more times. Whole body is breathing with the earth, drawing that fresh chi in and pressing out all the old stagnant stuff. And one more. Now you can imagine adding to this, you could be barefoot, or maybe you're in front of a tree, or maybe a little bit of both. Really, really sweet. So So it's a really wonderful grounding ritual, and it's just really cleansing in general. Sometimes, depending on when we're traveling, it's unpredictable. We run into situations that might be a little bit stressful or jarring if we're seeing family, or if we were just, going for something difficult, or if we run into some trouble. It's a really nice way to just ground your nervous system and to reduce some stress and to clear your field. The earth, she just has this natural way of cleaning us, right? It magnetizes the old stuff, and then she'll happy to give us her new chi. So I really hope that today you have learned some ways to bring yourself into adaptability and balance and grounding during this flurried Vata season. It can be a lot of fun. It's fun to fly around, and that air and space element is a beautiful thing. It's a lot of creativity and adventure, and it stimulates those higher parts of ourselves. But it's always best when we can ground it onto the earth again and to be well and happy. So I want to thank you for joining us. And remember, we have some of the products I talked about are 20% off. Take a look at our website. We have other great videos on our YouTube channel, and it is Community Cleanse Month. Our theme is community immunity. So this entire month, we're all cleansing together. I have a suggested cleanse that I'm doing that you can follow along with, or you can do your own thing, and we're just giving you supportive tips, and you can always ask questions. We'll make videos to order. So thanks again for coming, and I'll see you next month.